Hi, everyone. Hi, Paul. Thanks again for joining us for our LinkedIn Live. This is our second session. I completely bogged the first by giving everyone the wrong date, and loads of people signed up to the wrong one. So if you did miss that, if you visit my profile, it's on there. And again, it's on our website, on our lives. But this is our second live, and this time we're going to do a deep dive. God, I can't talk today, into the CRM and what it can actually do from you from a sales and marketing perspective. Because I know when working with people, so often they are either not using their CRM, it's sitting there in the background and it's just running and not doing anything, or they're just using like 1/8 of its capabilities, which means that they are simply not making the most of it. And we always go, "What's your CRM?" It's the first question we'll always ask a client, and so often we get a blank look and people's faces, or I don't even know what a CRM is. So we covered that in the first session. But this session, I want to go a little bit more in depth as to what a CRM can actually really do for your business. So, Paul, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, tell us about your company, and then we'll start getting in there.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Henny. Thanks for having us again on this second session. So, my name is Paul Harris from Coacto, and Coacto are a specialist CRM implementation consultancy. We largely work with Salesforce.com technology because that's the world's #1 CRM system, and it's broad and deep, and we haven't yet found any situation where we couldn't align that technology or add some building blocks into that technology that would enable us to meet customers' needs. And I've been working in the Salesforce CRM space for over 20 years now, in IT for probably close to 40 years, he says in a muffled voice. So I've worked.
It's always a
uh,
bad calculation to do that
it
one.
is, yeah, never do those calculations live. And I've worked both, I started out as a developer, but I got increasingly closer to the customer. So I've worked with CRMs um, as somebody that was managing, say, an international distribution channel. I've worked with CRMs as a business owner, and I've married really those two skills to help people get the best out of CRM. Because I know we were at a trade show last week, a Smart Manufacturing Expo, and as soon as you mention the word CRM, I'd say probably 4 or 5 out of 10 people just had this awful look on their face. They would groan and moan, and it's terrible, it doesn't do this, it doesn't do that, we don't like it, we don't use it, we need something new. And I think there's massive benefits to be gained from aligning a CRM to your business, but I think many people don't actually do that. They don't invest, and as you said, Henny, people just simply don't use it. They prefer spreadsheets. So I'm looking forward to this morning just to sort of explore some of the areas around sales and marketing where we can really leverage the
Yeah.
power of CRM technology, whatever that might mean, and it's different things to different people.
Yeah, and it is really interesting actually because we get exactly the same sort of things coming back to us. We need a specially built CRM from us, or we need this. And actually, I think what most people do when they start off is they get a basic CRM system, and and they'll start running on that, and then they'll start to realize what it can do. But actually, what they're not necessarily doing is aligning it with their long-term business goals and plans. They're not looking at the integrations that can happen throughout it, and it's there to make their journey better and easier, and
Yeah.
to get really great data off the back of it. And if they're not using one, they're simply losing all of that really good stuff that we make really good clear business decisions on.
I, and
So
I, that's absolutely right. And it's about using the data to make those decisions. And every business has some bespoke aspect to what they do, of course. I mean, I think I may have mentioned on the last live, we did a system for a company based in UK, USA, and South America, who bring or allow students from South America to come to Canadian, US, and UK universities. They're not going to get an off-the-shelf CRM system, but when they described to us what they need, we teased out that shopping list of the things they needed. We were able to take the basic building blocks that are provided, say, in Salesforce Sales Cloud, and tailor a system that enables them to manage all of the relationships involved in placing a student from South America, say, into a Canadian university. And now they've seen what it can do. They're getting really excited because they say, well, okay, can we do HR in there? Can we track our expenses in there? Can we do our budgets? Can we do our
Yeah.
forecasts? So that basic CRM has started really small. They've seen the power of it, and now they want more.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? But we say the same with websites because people go, I want a bespoke site, or they get very like, oh, someone offers them a bespoke site, and we go, do you know what that actually means? Like the real thing of that is that you're just going to pay more over a longer period of time. And actually, most of these off the shelf solutions, if they're in the right hands and have the right team behind them, can be just as effective to create their own sort of bespoke system out of it without having and it getting those ongoing expenditures, which is what puts people mostly off from entering the market in the first place, is that they suddenly go, oh, actually, I need this, and actually, I need this. And every add on, if you've gone bespoke in the first place, then has to be bespokely made for it. So those costs just escalate and escalate. Whereas most of these systems are built to cover 90% of what needs to happen. And
Yep.
therefore, the rest could be bespokely done.
Yep.
But those you can use the core essence of what's already there to create your system. But that's why you employ experts like yourself to be able to understand that for them, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, and it's just about taking that technology and aligning it to the needs. But first of all, you've got to write down what those needs are. And some people are, you know, they don't want to do that. And if you don't know what it is you want, or you're not writing down your challenges or the things you want the system to do for you, but you're just going out to buy a system, it's no wonder in many cases that it doesn't do what you want it to do. Because I
Mm,
mean, it's like going shopping without writing a shopping list. I know, okay, that's probably a bit of a trite example, but that's true. If you don't know what it is you want when you go out into the supermarket, what are you going to come back with? Probably a load of chocolate
mm,
and some alcohol and no food. And it's the food that you need really to make these systems aligned to to what you do. You can't live on
yeah.
alcohol and chocolate all the time.
Give it a damn good go, though, can't you?
You could.
Okay, well let's dig in because actually it's really important that we do cover because we've got loads on
Yeah,
that
we
we were
have.
like we were going, oh, we should talk about that and this, and it just went on and on and on. And obviously that's why we're now doing a series of these so that we can fit it all in. And I know that for a lot of viewers it's not the most sort of sexy topic to talk about, but yet for me it's one of the most important ones, which is why I asked you to do it, because I just don't feel that people really get how a CRM maybe integrates with their website, the sort of things that they can do. So we always talk in marketing like, well, if they click here, we can add a field to say that they're an emotional buyer or they are a factual buyer based on the interactions that they are taking on their site. And we can start to lead them on a journey and it just leaves them like, what's going on now? But actually once they start to get into it, they can really realize what's happening. But without a CRM system, it's almost impossible to do some of these things that
Yeah.
as marketers we like to do. So the first sort of topic that I want to really talk about is how it integrates with the website to give people a really good understanding of that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I just wanted to start by saying that most people are probably aware of the shift that's happened probably in the last 5 or 6 years to where it was maybe 20% about marketing and 80% about sales. That's now completely flipped to probably about 80% of that nurturing and that engagement with potential prospects is done from a marketing perspective. It's understanding who they are, what they're engaging with, what content they've downloaded, looking at some analytics from that, and then in order to feed the pipeline with warm leads rather than doing tons of cold calling and so on, which was the traditional approach. And so, I think there are many ways that CRM systems can integrate with websites, with marketing campaigns, lead nurturing tools, journey building tools, but they really depend on what you want your business to have from an integration with a website. But that, again, as you mentioned earlier, comes back to your strategy. What do you want it to do? What's the shopping list? How are we going to get our needs met from a CRM
Yeah,
integration with a website? And so at the basic level, you can put forms on there, for example. So you can have a contact us form, which somebody types their details in, they click submit. What that does is that then creates a lead in your CRM system. They get an auto response sent back from the CRM system. The CRM notifies somebody maybe in a particular business area. Say, for example, there's Bob in the southwest of England happens to deal with that geography. So Bob gets a notification. Or you can also do things for support. So we've got our Salesforce system linked up to a website. If you go on, you've got a problem, type it in on our website, creates a support case in our system, somebody gets notified. But you can also do things like one of our customers does surveys and polls and post-event feedback. You can also link your website through to managing e-commerce orders so that your website becomes your web shop. But what that does is that comes into a CRM, it links to customer records that are already in the system. You can track your orders, fulfill your orders, manage the payments and all kinds of other requests. You can also put customer and supply portals in place. And so, we've got our CRM system has a support portal. So when people want to submit a request to us, they log on to what they think is a website. It's actually our Salesforce system disguised to look like our website, and they can then go in and interact with us. They're actually viewing all of their issues, and the more traditional ones I think that people might be familiar with are things like Google Analytics and Google Ads, and it allows you to link your CRM system to that traffic, through that analysis, through those interactions, so that you can then associate that with CRM data, or you can build reports. You can track lead and opportunity journeys. You can segment and report on the data. You can create audiences for remarketing to, for example. Well, these folks went all the way through this journey that we defined, and then they dropped off. Why did they drop off? Well, let's reach out to them. We know where they got to, so we have some information about the journey, that they've taken. And the marketing tools now are so sophisticated in terms of the different things that they can do, that really you're taking somebody by the hand and you're taking them through that journey, taking them through that lead nurturing capability, and delivering content that aligns to where they're at in the journey. And
Yeah.
that can be hugely powerful. But I think my experience is there's probably a small percentage of organizations that are actually doing that. They're still doing things like email marketing, only email marketing, for example, or they're running landing page campaigns. But there's so much more that linking a website up to a CRM system can actually do.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. It is about thinking it through. I think so often people are not aligning all of these systems. They're not thinking them as one, but yet they should be. Your website, you need to have thought through your marketing plan to know what needs to be on your website. You also need to think about what your goals are as a business to know what your CRM needs to be doing and where you're integrating it within your website. And then what do you want it to automate and do for you? And I think one of the sort of hidden things that it really helps you with is time, because you see people repeating tasks all the time, and I'm like, just get a piece of paper and a pen and write down what you're doing daily. We've started putting screen recorders on our screens when we're doing work for businesses, and we started recording our everyday work of what we were doing, and then you get to see how much time you're spending on admin or something else. And actually when you add that up with your hourly rate, you're like, bloody hell, that's a lot. what
It's massive.
what can be automated here? What can be, yeah, it's actually scary when you actually really get down into the nitty gritty of it. And I see it doing consultation work with clients, and you're looking there and you're going, wow, look at that amount of time that you've got. And actually all of that can be automated through a CRM system.
Mm.
The thing that I find that puts them off is cost. And yet actually when they add up the cost of nearly every system that they are running, you've got an email marketing system, you've got a thing, social media scheduler, you've got all of these other tools, you take those costs away and you're getting something in a centralized system that's giving you really good data to base really good decisions on.
Yeah.
It's absolutely key. And at the end of the month you can literally just look at a screen and go, this is what happened, and then repeat your good decisions and get rid of all your really rubbish
Yeah.
ones,
Yeah. Yeah.
which for me is the most important, because people are looking for growth when they're coming, and if they haven't got a system like that, they're manually having to go in each time,
Yeah.
and or they think that they're busy and something's worked, but it isn't. And when you're doing consultation work, you can see time and time again, I've been into businesses big and small, where they've run the same marketing campaign consistently and lost money consistently year after year because they feel busy, because they were packing loads of envelopes or they were
Yeah,
doing something. But actually, they've never equated it to the return on investment or never
absolutely.
things like that. And so you're like, well, actually, do you know you've run this year on year and it's probably lost you 100,000 over the course of that time?
Yeah.
And
Oh,
it literally blows their mind when they actually begin to see it
it
in
does.
real term.
But they don't have the data in most cases, and I think, and there's a couple of things you mentioned there, which I think are really important to touch on. One is about people see it as a cost; they don't see it as an investment. And if you look at the actual costs of this software, it might seem like it's expensive, but then compare that to your people costs. Look at your the effectiveness of your people and how much they're costing you. And I've seen many examples of where people have decided not to move forward with technology because they've seen it as expensive. We did some work for a financial company once, and they were saying to Paul, there's a real issue here with us putting data from our email system into our CRM system. I said, well, why don't you just get an app in place to do that, just to copy from one to the other with a few clicks? Well, how much is that going to cost? And it was something like £50 per user per month. And the manager said, oh, that's really expensive. He had 30 people. So it was going to cost him £1,500 per user per month. So overall, it was £18,000 a year. Now, £18,000 a year, I know from their hourly rate, is probably about half of what they were paying some of these people. But they refused to make that investment. They'd much rather somebody spend, each of their 30 people spending an hour a day copy and pasting into the CRM system. I mean, that is where you look at it and think, that doesn't quite make sense. What's the decision making process there? So yeah, I think if you see it as an investment and you look, as you say, about the automations that you can make, you can save yourself a ton of time. And of course, AI is now starting to do that. It's starting to focus people's attention on those repeatable things that can be automated. And a lot of what we do for some of our customers is those automations. What are you doing? Why are you writing an email each time to a lead? Why don't you create an email template? You associate the leads with a campaign and send a custom email to each of the, or a personalized email rather, to each of the people on the campaign. It's going to take you a fraction of the time. But it's also about thinking smart, I think, as well, and looking at what the technology can do for you, which, again, often requires somebody that's working with this all the time to say, how are you doing that? You could do that this way. You could save some time here.
And tapping into those expertise, when I'm doing consultancy work, you can it's a chance and they're like, oh, I just didn't see it like that because you're the outsider coming in, you're not in the business all the time. And actually, I always say to businesses, we're too close to our own businesses to see them objectively. And having a partner that works with you consistently, being able to come in and just highlight probably the obvious to you or a different way of doing it. So you might go into an organization and go that we're doing it like this, and you're like, well, why? Why are you not just doing it like this? It's just got to be easier, and this is what the system can do. So, and because of your depth of knowledge on a system like this that they won't have, that you find that they try and bend these systems themselves internally, and then they get themselves in a mess. Then they get bored of them, and then they move on. And I'm always like, never invest into a CRM system where you really haven't got that support arm, because there's so many out there that your web developer with the best will in the world, I wouldn't know the depths and breadths of a system. What I
Mm-hmm.
can do is put a wish list together of what I need it to do for a client, but I'm not going to do that work. And so they really do need that support partner to be able to help them through to stop those potential blocks, or the reason why they then suddenly stop using it when it can be such a valuable resource to them.
I think that's right. And interesting, that reminds me of a conversation I had with one of our customers the other day about trying to leverage their existing system. So they're using it for sales. So they manage all of their quotes, their lead tracking, their prospecting, their pipelines, forecast are all managed in there. But the only marketing they've ever done is around email marketing. So I was talking to the sales director there about things like, creating customer journeys, tracking the touch points that customers have, delivering the content appropriate to where they're at in that journey, nudging them if you haven't heard from them for a while, and just then using those journeys and those pathways to see which ones deliver the most leads, which ones get the most engagement, so that you can then give your salespeople much more information that then enables them to close a deal. And he said, "Oh, this is brilliant. How do I do that? Because we're just using MailChimp email marketing at the moment. We're not really managing and
Hate
nurturing
that.
these."
Hate
Yeah.
that platform. It's so complicated. I always go, if they can get that one right, then they could get any, then they'll be
Well,
fine with the CRM system.
cool. Well, quite. And then we got into talking about, how you can create all these funnels, and so that you can attract and acquire people, you can then engage with people, you can nurturify and basically take the funnel down to get the qualified
And
leads, and
that's
then
exactly it. Yeah.
he hadn't thought of it quite in that way before, because he's got a sales background. So going back to my point earlier, that this idea where people spend most of the effort in sales, if you give your salespeople better information, better leads, more information about those leads, because you've gone through that prospect data capture and behavior tracking, and you've seen what they've engaged with, you've got the history of that, you've got more demographic information about them, you then may be able to reach out and find out more about them through integrations with social media. You
Yeah.
may be able to do things like scoring your leads. We introduced a lead scoring thing in our company about 6 months ago, and it focuses the mind down. You focus in on the leads that have got the highest score. You forget the ones that you think, oh, I'd really like to talk to them, but actually they're unlikely to close. You then focus on the ones that are much more likely to close, and you can then narrow things and align things down to focusing those prospects on aligning with your customer avatars. Who's most likely to do business with us? Who are the kind of customers that we want? So you start to use, as you were saying at the beginning, all of that data, with LinkedIn, with the analytics, and the Google ads and Google Analytics, to then inform your sales process. And
Yeah.
you know the power then of your CRM becomes massive,
Well,
because you've got all that data in there.
exactly. When we're setting up a sort of marketing plan, or thinking about the sort of journey of the website when we're starting, when we're looking at web pages, we're always looking at what if they do, that's great, and what if they don't. So what if they're just in that looking stage? And actually, the web pages should be set up in according to how that journey is going to dictate which type of customer they are. Are they on the I want to educate myself? I'm in that sort of process of thinking about something. I'm just looking, or are they a serious buyer who's ready to go? And actually thinking about the sort of marketing that you're pushing into that page. Are they right at the beginning of their journey? Is that what that page is about? If so, then this is the sales funnel that they're going to go down, and this is what we want to learn about them as they go. So setting up a marketing campaign that will then tag those individuals based on their interactions, so that we can find out a lot more about them. And when we can look in the CRM system and see, these are all the people in the CRM system that are ready to buy, these are all the people who are in that thinking process, and they split into these industries, these categories, all the sort of data that we might look at on our existing client base and say, this is what we want to know about them, so that we can really tailor those marketing messages down. And marketing is going to become, especially with AI, hyper personalized. So your CRM system is going to become more and more important in being able to deliver that hyper personalized experience with them. And if we haven't done that and set our systems up like that, you're going to be losing out to the companies who have done it,
Hmm.
because that is just the way that the world is going. You're going to see more and more things that we used to think were creepy, and soon they're going to become mainstream, and we're going to get used to them.
Yeah.
And if we're not delivering that back, even small companies, if they're not delivering a really personalized experience, and they're going to get left behind. Now, for most people, buying into this new technology is going to be far too expensive. But where actually a CRM system comes in is it allows you to create a very hyper personalized experience on a very small budget.
Yeah.
And if it's used correctly through their marketing, thinking through their marketing campaigns, this will be the way for me that I'm going to be able to take small companies and make them bigger companies and still be able to play with the big boys. And the great thing about being small is you're agile. You
Yeah.
can move quicker than them. So setting yourself up right away at the beginning correctly will allow you to do those things, which for me is really important, for especially working with the small to medium sized
Yeah.
businesses.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's important to get those systems and processes in to give you the discipline and to give you the, the culture and the way of working in an organization. So regardless of what tools you have, if you have those tools, you need to make sure you use them, you report from them, you make decisions from them, so that it becomes part of the DNA of your business. And when you do that, you work on those tools, you make them better, you add new capabilities to them. I mean, Salesforce come out with 3 new releases every year. They come up with hundreds of new features 3 times a year that gives you the ability then to move your environment, your systems, and your processes forward so that you stay competitive. Because you're absolutely right. If you don't do it, somebody else is going to do it, and they're gonna notch ahead of you.
I also think that, when we talk about costs and staff, we've moved people around within businesses, when you've got a good CRM system behind you, because the job of that person really has become defunct because it's all being sort of done by automation now. And sorry, I got something in my eye. Just typical time to get something in your eye. But then it's all sort of being done, and actually you can utilize that body elsewhere doing
Yeah,
another job that pushes the business even further forward.
yeah.
So for me, it's absolutely imperative. Talking about some of these sort of new functions that it's bringing out, you say it releases 3 new functions, and I know that AI is becoming a sort of a thing. How is Salesforce keeping up? What are the sort of really powerful tools that people can use within Salesforce to be able to help their businesses move?
Yeah, again, it really depends on what kind of things you're looking to achieve. But just to give you a flavor for, for some of the things, they have a number of standard clouds that support different aspects. There's a sales cloud, service cloud, there's a marketing cloud, which we've spoken about, and I can talk a little bit about that later. There are other industry-specific clouds. There's a finance cloud, for example, there's a manufacturing cloud, education cloud, government cloud, that are all designed to narrow the CRM down into a particular vertical space, which helps because you then get features and capabilities that support the vertical in which you're working. But talking more generally, most people have customers and they're managing sales. So Sales Cloud is a really great place to start to do all your contact management, your forecasting, to allow your teams to collaborate, manage and track leads, close deals faster. But there are things like, configure, price, quote. You may have heard of the term CPQ, and what that enables sales teams to do is to configure. Probably the best example is when you buy a car. The car companies are all doing this, so they'll profile you. You'll go in and you'll say, yeah, well, I want that BMW, 1 Series, for example. And of course, they know that you're probably sold on buying that, but then their job is to configure that, to personalize it to you. It's also an upsell opportunity as well. So
Mm.
they're giving you an accurate and highly configured quote that meets your needs, but means you spend more money. So that there are those capabilities. One of the things that Salesforce has done recently, which is actually one of the fastest growing areas of of their sort of technology portfolio, is something called Data Cloud, which is linked in with their Einstein AI platform and allows you to bring together all of these different data sources, data lakes, data warehouses, and so on, so that you can drive actions, suggestions, and automation inside your CRM. And what that does is that brings pieces of an organization together to improve customer service, to improve sales, to drive growth and scalability. I won't touch on AI too much because I know there's a lot of people talking about AI at the moment, but Salesforce has a lot of capabilities in there. But just going back to one of the things I mentioned earlier was really about integrating your email with your CRM system. Seems a very basic capability. Some people don't do that, but if you want that customer 360 view of all the interactions you've had with that customer, then you need to put those emails in there. You need to put those calls logged in there. You need to create all of the tasks in there so that you can use email tracking and calendar integration and all of those things to give you that holistic view of
Mm.
your customer. And there's tons of other things around territory planning using maps. There is something called high velocity sales, which allows you to put workflows and sales cadences in place to streamline the sales process so that the sales are optimized. There's all kinds of collaboration tools. Salesforce acquired Slack a few years ago, so you can now use Slack in
I didn't know
conjunction with
that.
Salesforce.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're buying companies all the time to add to those capabilities. So there's actually a ton of things in there. It's almost impossible to say, list all of the features, but
Unless you really know what you want up front. Yeah.
well, and it comes back to that shopping list, Tony. It's coming back. I'm speaking with somebody at the moment who is so frustrated with their systems. It's not, their accounting system is off, and they're storing customer data in their accounting system, like quotes and images and all sorts of things that don't belong in an accounting system. They've got HubSpot on the front end, and that's kind of working, but it's disconnected from everything else. Their quoting tool is separate, and they're so frustrated. And I can see all of the challenges.
Yeah,
But
well, a
what?
lot of people start with HubSpot and then get into it. And then because it's the free CRM system, so it's a
Yep,
good starting point, isn't
yep,
it? And
it
then
is.
realize the minute they want to go anything past 2,000 contacts on marketing or anything else, then they suddenly are into megabucks. And then if they want the sales side, again, that's even more.
It's
And
it
it gets very expensive very quickly. So then they start bending around that and using other tools, which means that there's no centralized database again any longer.
That's exactly what's happened. Or you've got data actually in data silos, or you've got function silos, which in some cases is even worse because these things are completely disconnected. And that particular organization have now decided they're going to build a custom website to manage all of their order processing, but haven't thought about how they're going to link it to their accounts, how they're going to link it to their CRM, how they're going to link it to their sales. But that's just the way that organization is thinking. And now I know that we could massively transform that experience for them and put something in that goes end to end. But
Mm.
there's got to be the will in the organization to say, well, we need to have a defined process with defined systems and to get everybody on board. You can't just do it piecemeal. You've got to look at what your strategy is and what you
You've also
need.
got to get buy-in across the organization because it's, I always say garbage in, garbage out. So if people are not using it, then you're not going to get out what you need out of that system. So there does have to be buy-in across the
It does,
board.
yeah, and that could be challenging as well.
It is.
Getting
I
people on
think that
board.
is one of the most challenging things because people get stuck in their ways and they like to do things a certain way. But then someone like me comes along, goes, "Where's my data each month?" It becomes a bit more of a right. You're going to have to do it because she's going to kill us if we don't give her the data. So
Well, yeah, but equally, you can do some very simple things like run your sales meetings from your CRM system. So there, straight away, if the data's not in the system, you can't have an effective sales meeting. So that then encourages everybody to do it. So there are some simple tricks that you can apply to nudge people in the right direction, because the three pillars of business are process, systems, and people. And you need to have effective processes, effective systems, and effective people. And if one of those falls down, you're not operating as effective as you could. You're not giving yourself the ability to grow or scale as effectively as you might.
yeah. So I want to round back on sort of my little sort of final question, because obviously I love the marketing side and that's
Yeah.
the bit that I'm really into, and really want to give my sort of viewership and people who are watching today a really good idea of some of the marketing tools that it has, because I think people would be really surprised actually as to what it contains. And then when they look and think of all the other systems that they're running on the side and add that up, actually what a great system this actually is. So can we just run through a
Yeah.
few of those, especially the sort of email marketing and the social side and all of that, because those are the basics that most people tend to have, and I know that it contains all of those.
Yeah, it does have all of those. Nothing in particular on the social side. It's about linking that data that you might harvest from social media into giving you that prospect 360 review. What do we know about this person? What are they posting about? Who are they interacting with? Um, that's an important aspect that Salesforce provides. But I mean, there's a number of areas. I mean, we touched on data cloud, which is really about trying to leverage and unify all of that data into that customer profile, that customer 360. And that's not just about sales data, or it's not just about purchase data, it's about marketing data as well. And putting that all together can be hugely powerful.
Mm,
But once you've got some of that data, you can use things like personalization. So based on the journey that people have taken, what they've seen, you could then dynamically offer things to a customer based on their interactions at a particular point in that customer journey. So you might have mapped out a customer journey, and the customer is, going down this journey in maybe a slightly tortuous way. You could say, and actually it happened to me the other day. I've been looking at something for home, and I engaged with them about 10 days ago. And today I got an offer saying, look, we realize that you've looked at our website, and you've looked at this, and you've looked at that. So they know about me, and they know about what I've looked at. I said, look, we're going to give you, for today only, a 50% offer on that product. Sign up today. So that is based on how I've interacted with them. They've personalized that journey for me, because they can see all of the engagement that I've had with them across that marketing or commerce or whatever engagements I've had during that journey. And so it's about capturing all of that, just personalizing it. It's managing that engagement. It's also looking at things, not just say from an individual perspective, but maybe from an account perspective. So, if you're dealing with, very large organizations, we were at a trade show last week, and there was GlaxoSmithKline and Mars and all of these organizations. When you speak to somebody there, you're speaking to a tiny cog in a massive machine. And so sometimes you need to join up all of these pieces of data together so that you know how you're engaging with that account rather than just individuals. And once you've got these some of these systems in place, you can optimize the marketing journeys, you can optimize the performance of those, or which journeys are delivering the most leads, which journeys are delivering the best leads, what journeys aren't people going down at all, so that it's really about getting that intelligence back.
Stops you wasting time as well. Because I find that when
yeah,
people have that data, what they do is they use it and put it back into their social media campaigns, because they know now what people are enjoying and what they're liking. So they're just producing more of it. So ultimately their marketing becomes more effective because they have that data coming back. They're feeding back what their client base actually wants, whereas they're before just relying on complete and utter guesswork,
yeah,
looking at their competitors, seeing what they're up to, and not really thinking about how their client base is actually interacting with them at all, or really what actually gets that lead over the line. Most
yeah.
of the time it's like, oh well, they just chose us. And actually it is often much more nuanced than that. When I sit with salespeople, there'll be one guy that's really good and he'll be saying the same thing again and again and again and again. And it might be a little bit maverick what he's saying, but it's getting them over the line. And then when you say to the owner of the business, well, he's saying that the others aren't because it's not in your rules and you're not allowed to, but it's helping you win clients, they'll immediately change it. We'll put it over the website, we'll put it everywhere. But that, if you don't have that data in your CRM system, you'd never know some of that data. That's, it's about the inputs that go into it, which is why it's so important
It
to keep
is.
inputting into it.
Yeah, and I think that's why Salesforce have really positioned this data cloud product now, because it enables them also to do things like loyalty. So you reward your loyal customers, you give them special offers to make what they've made a choice to go with you. Let's reward them for that, or let's leverage them to do referral marketing. So people that are really happy with your products, you can create referral programs to then acquire new customers. And all of this sits around the things that you mentioned earlier about AI, email campaigns, social media ads, all the journey building. But also, you can start to use that data to create, audience, so that you can, bring together all of the data to then target new audiences, or to put specific, comms in place to particular targeted audiences. So there's a ton of things that you can do, but the key thing is, it's not to look at this and say, oh my goodness, where do I start? It's engage somebody, like yourself or like us, to say, these are my challenges, these are the things that I think I need, these are the things that aren't working. But start small, start with something that then allows you to grow and add to that, which Salesforce is great at doing that, because there's a tool for everything on
We
the
say the
platform.
same with websites. Rome isn't built in a day. Let's start with the quick wins, get that set up, then move on to the next, then the next, rather than everything at once, because that would put people off. And actually, over time, the budgets will be there because it will be delivering it back. So it doesn't actually matter that they're not at the sort of final end goal at the moment. The great thing about actually not having these bespoke systems is there's so many add-ons that we can bring in along the way.
It is, and sometimes we just done a system for an organisation, and they said, look, we've got a small budget. It's about 15K. Said, okay, what can you do for that? So we mapped it out. Yeah, that's fine, but we can't go over. We've only got 15K. Said, okay, we'll build all of those things. And some of it, there was a couple of things that were quite custom. So we built it and delivered it to them. And having said that, there was no more budget for 12 months. Within about 2 to 3 weeks, they're coming back and saying, God, this is great. This is great. Can we do our HR in there as well? Yeah, yeah. How about our budgets, and how about our expenses, and can we integrate with the website? And so it just opened up a world of possibilities, because they'd almost been like a plant sat in a cupboard. They couldn't grow, they couldn't see the outside, they couldn't see how they might engage more effectively with their customers, or engage their staff as well to some extent. And once they saw the art of the possible, they were like, right, I want more of that, please. And yes,
Yeah.
we'll find some money, we'll refactor our budgets, we'll look at where we can get some money from to do some of those things that we now think, oh great, it'd be great if we had that.
I mean, one of the reasons for doing talks like this is actually it's about an education piece for people, because it is such a humongous topic. This, I mean, we could talk forever and ever about CRMs, what they can do, and you're absolutely right, is about the organization, what they want. But because it's so endless, it can feel a little bit overwhelming to the people that are coming in to do it for the first time. And I know that there's a lot of hand holding that needs to go through these
Yeah,
processes at the beginning. But I think when people come out the other end of that sort of process, which actually wasn't as painful as they ever thought it was going to be, because they've been handheld through it, that they're like, oh my God, I didn't know how. And then they start seeing things like, oh, that will be delivered by a CRM system. They're experiencing actually other people's CRM systems all the time. They're just unaware that that's what it is and that's what it's delivering back.
yeah,
And actually, they start seeing it happening in everyday life. They start having ideas for their own business, the things that they want to do with it, that they don't realize that actually it's not a website that does it, it's a CRM system that's doing it behind the scenes.
yeah,
And I think sometimes people expect loads from their website, and you're like, actually, that's a CRM system that's doing that. You need to get one of those, and we need to add it on now. So it is part of the education side. And the reason for connecting with you really was just to allow people to sort of understand that, and to realize that actually it is a hand holding process. It isn't something that necessarily you will do on your own, because it is such a humongous topic. And how would you know? You're not doing it daily, every
well,
day, day in, day out.
that's a good point. Yeah, it's exactly right. And we tend to try and scope projects based on what we think the customer can manage as part of that, digital transformation or technology shift. And so some organizations can just deal with really small pieces. We've done really big projects as well, but for us, it's really about the success, and the smaller ones tend to are successful faster. So it allows you
Mm,
to build on that success, rather than these big IT projects that people are fearful of, and they're worried about failure, or they're worried about them not delivering what they could. If you start small, there's much, much, much less risk of that. Get some benefit early, and then capitalize upon that benefit, and just gently expand out your capabilities. Because
yeah.
you're right, behind all of these really big organizations that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, there is a CRM system at work. Amazon is one big CRM system. It's made up of lots of different systems, but we can see how effective that is. And I think you made an interesting point earlier on about how personalized these journeys are going to become. It's because of the data in the CRM system. It's a little bit like that film. Was it called Minority Report with Tom Cruise? And
Oh, yeah, yeah,
if you
yeah.
remember that, and he's walking along, and then they're playing an ad that's targeted at him.
Yeah.
People think, oh my goodness, do you think they'll be able to do that? Well, they can. The technology is now available to deliver that.
Mm,
We get that every time we go on social media. oh, I've been looking at walking shoes because I'm doing a Sahara trek, in November, and now my social media is flooded with walking this, walking poles, walking socks, walking boots, and it's because they know something about me. So now they're
Yeah,
trying
yeah,
to
yeah.
target me with all of that stuff. This kind of technology is already there, and people are using it. And
And as I say, it's creepy now, some of it, but it won't be soon because it will
no,
start to fall into mainstream. It's
absolutely.
and it's just the way it's going to start moving. But yeah, well, listen, Paul, thank you so much for coming on today. Can you just give everyone a quick sort of overview of how to get hold of you? I've put your QR code there for anyone who wants to scan it.
Yeah, sure. So the best way to get in contact with us is to send us a message or an email. If you send it to marketing@coacto.co.uk, and that's coacto.co.uk, and one of my team will pick that up. We'll connect with you on LinkedIn. If you want to provide some details, obviously name, company, if there's anything that's particularly of interest to you that you'd like to have a conversation with. And we're currently offering free consultations to organizations that have got challenges with their systems or their processes, and they just want to come in to the office, have a chat, have a coffee, have a bit of cake, or we'll come to you if that doesn't work for you, just to see if we can help you move forward.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Henny.